I heard about a month ago that Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill was becoming popular again, and so I went and discovered it was because it was on the Netflix series. What the hell's it called? Stranger, whatever. I can't remember what it's called. I've seen the series and it's meh. I don't know what the big deal is. Anyway, at first I was resentful that how dare you love Kate Bush now after all these years when I've been loving her so hard for all this time. But in retrospect, I actually think it's a good thing if people can start loving or having interest in older stylings of music, particularly this style. I mean, if people start getting into that album, that would be awesome. That's when we start getting into post prog rock, I guess you would call it. Although I doubt Kate called it that at the time, but she was in that gang of people. But that type of music that it's not there for you just to bounce your head up and down to and listen to in the background. It demands your attention. It demands your involvement. You have to give yourself up to the music. I think it would be awesome if people started listening to that type of music again and demanding productions that are more than just a processed wall of sound. So Running Up the Hill was off of the album Hounds of Love, and that was 1985. Yeah, so that was on the tail end of that post-prog rock period, at least as I would recognize it, from like mid-1970s to mid-1980s. And the first time I heard it, by that point I was ready for something like that, a concept album. And it really is a freaking awesome concept album. Hounds of Love is one of my favorite albums of all times. It is such a good album. But I was ready for it because by that point I had already processed in my head Close to the Edge. You know, I graduated from Yes's Fragile to Yes, Close to the Edge. And once you're able to give yourself up to Close to the Edge, you're ready for any type of concept music. I just played a clip of the anarchy part in the beginning of the song because it's funny. That whole song is not anarchy like that, and that's not just anarchy for anarchy's sake. It had a purpose. But that's a 17-minute long song that if you haven't gotten into it, you know, go ahead and listen to the album Fragile by Yes. Listen to that a couple times. And then once you've digested that, move on to Close to the Edge and listen to that. Probably the best pop album of all times, if you want to call it pop, probably the best rock album of all times. So anyway, Running Up That Hill. I had been aware of Kate Bush before that. Like I heard Wuthering Heights, really didn't like it. And I heard the album before Hounds of Love, and I thought it was really super interesting. You know what it reminded me of? Like if you compare, I can't remember what the album before this was called. What was it called? I don't remember. But the album before Hounds of Love, it was like John Fowles wrote The Magus and he wrote The French Lieutenant's Woman. And The Magus was like his younger self throwing everything he had at the book. I mean, he threw everything at that book and it went all over the place. And The French Lieutenant's Woman was, you know, it was kind of like a version of The Magus, but more streamlined, more intentional. And, you know, in my heart of hearts, I actually liked The Magus better, but The French Lieutenant's Woman is the book that people idolize. Anyway, so the album before this was, she really pushed the edges, and I think in Hounds of Love, it was more streamlined, and she got her concept. You know, there was this is a concept album, almost, well, maybe a couple songs aren't part of the concept. By and large, though, Hounds of Love is a concept album where she really directed her thoughts, you know, and it shows, man, that album's so good. And, you know, her contemporaries at the time, she reminds me of what Peter Gabriel was doing around the same time.
Self-control. No self-control. No self-control. No self-control. No self-control. No
that would be Peter Gabriel from 1980, I think that was, No Self Control off of Melt. And that sounds like Kate Bush singing in the background because that is Kate Bush singing in the backgrounds. And the drums sound like Phil Collins because that is Phil Collins. So that's Phil Collins and Peter Gabriel, the founding members of Genesis, which is also one of the original main prog rock bands. And also on there on guitar is Robert Fripp from King Crimson, one of the founding fathers of prog rock bands. So all this shit's tied together. This is what King Crimson was sounding like at around the time Bush's Hounds of Love came out. Now that had Robert Fripp, and it had Bill Bruford, who was the original drummer from Yes on Close to the Edge. Who else? Tony Levin, who quite often played stick and bass for Peter Gabriel. So see, they're all tied together. I could probably keep doing this shit forever, but I'm supposed to be talking about Running Up That Hill off of Hounds of Love. Running Up That Hill is not, I hate to say it's not the best song on that album because the songs are, they're kind of like interlocked. Most of them are. It's a necessary component of the song, but we should listen to at least a little part of that because I'm supposed to be talking about it. Maybe you can't hear how the post-prog rock theme or post-prog rock sound is a part and parcel of this particular song, but you can hear it in the album. I'd also like to point out that the album preceding this kind of helped her, in my mind, it helped her to make this one the beautiful thing that it is because she started worrying about all the technology and all the multiple sounds that you can use and all the different colors that you can put into a song. And this became much more streamlined. It became much more, the concept just shines through in this album, and it's a thing of beauty. Also, I'd like to say, at least from my experience, on this album, she utilizes a much wider range of voicings, whereas the things that drove me crazy about Kate Bush music before and after this is just her constant need to go up into that upper register and just screech. I mean, I can only take so much of it, Kate. This album is much more exploratory of her voice, but more streamlined in sound than the previous album had been.
Do you wanna know that it doesn't hurt me? Do you wanna hear about the deal they're making? It's you and me. And if only could, I'd make a deal with God, and I'd get him to swap places. Be running up that road, be running up that hill, be running up that building. See if only could.
This little piece here is a segue from the track Dream of Sheep to the track Under Ice.
And they say they take me home.
through water, trying to
It's me.
get out of the cold water.
It's me.
Something,
It's me.
someone help them.
You must wake up.
Wake up, man.
Wake up, child. Pay attention.
Come on. Wake up.
Wake up, love.
You should make the night, but see your little lights alive. Can you not see that little light up there?
Where?
There.
Wake up, sleepyhead.
Don't you know you've kept him waiting?
Look who's here to see you.
I'm going to leave all that in this video and see if I can get away with posting it like this. I'm not even sure what my point was anymore, except listen to the whole album, Hounds of Love, and the other couple albums that I posted to. Give those a shot if you find any of this interesting.